Sunday dinner at my parents' house always felt like being trapped in a rerun of a show you didn't like the first time around. Same roast. Same fake laughs. Same questions asked just to be ignored halfway through your answer. The mashed potatoes were stiff, the wine was warm, and the tension? Always perfectly seasoned. We sat at the dining table my dad swore was solid oak, even though the corner wobbled if you breathed too hard. Mom had lit candles, like this was a holiday, but there was no occasion. Just the ritual. William, my older brother by 2 years, sat across from me, gesturing as he retold some story about that time at the dealership. He works in sales, and everyone laughed like he was on a stand-up stage. He always had that effect. Didn't matter what he said, people just leaned in. And me? I was the extra chair. The guy who brought his own six-pack and left with it untouched. The one who got told, "You're always so quiet," and then ignored whenever he tried to speak. Dad was already 2 fingers into his whiskey when he said it. "You'll never be like your brother." It wasn't a shout. It was worse, casual. Offhand. The way someone talks about the weather or gas prices. Just another one of Dad's truth bombs, as he called them. I didn't even look up right away. Just kept cutting into the steak, which, by the way, I had grilled myself on their busted propane unit last week. William had been watching football while I marinated it. He'd shown up late, as always, but still got credit for helping, because he opened a bag of salad. Mom chuckled awkwardly and reached for the butter. William smirked and took a bite of asparagus. No one defended me. They never did. It wasn't the first time I heard that line. In fact, I could probably stitch together a full-length audiobook made up entirely of the times my father reminded me that I'd never measure up. But this time, it hit different. Maybe it was the build-up. Maybe it was the years of being the family's emergency handyman/tech guy/ghost. Maybe it was just, finally enough. I looked down at my fork, steak still stabbed on the end, and gently set it down on the plate. The clink echoed in the silence that followed like a church bell. Then I looked up, straight into my dad's eyes. "Then he can pay for this house." Silence. The fork froze halfway to William's mouth. His eyes went wide, like he couldn't process what he just heard. Mom flinched, almost knocking her wineglass over. She caught it with a shaky hand, then whispered, "Pay for what?" I didn't answer. I stood up, slow and calm. Pulled out my chair without scraping it like I usually did. I looked around once, not at their faces, just the room itself. The dining room. The ugly green wallpaper Mom still insisted was vintage. The framed photo of William at his college graduation, center wall. No picture of mine, of course. I took in the sight like someone leaving a hotel room. One last glance before checkout. Then I walked down the hallway. Their hallway. The same one I painted 5 years ago because Dad threw out his back and William couldn't find time. As I passed the kitchen, I heard the clatter of someone standing. Maybe Dad? Maybe just nerves. I didn't stop to find out. I opened the front door, stepped outside, and pulled it shut behind me. It wasn't dramatic. No slamming. No yelling. Just done. The sky was overcast. One of those gray-blue evenings where everything feels hushed, like the world knows you're having a moment. I got into my car, the unnecessary purchase they mocked when I bought it, and sat in the quiet. No music. No podcast. Just breathing. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a guest in my own family. I felt like a man who had finally, left the table. When William turned 16, there was a car waiting in the driveway. A shiny midnight blue sedan, cleaned, waxed, and wrapped with a red ribbon like a prize on a game show. He sprinted outside in pajama pants and no shoes, yelling like he just won the lottery. My parents filmed it on their phones, laughing and crying. Dad said, "You earned it, son." Mom said, "Just don't forget who believes in you." When I turned 16, I got a reusable bus pass. Same house, same parents, different rules. While William drove to school blasting music, I stood under a leaning bus stop sign with a flickering streetlight and a schedule that had graffiti all over it. Rain, snow, wind, didn't matter. The bus was my ride, and I made peace with that early. I used to pretend it didn't bother me. I even joked about it once. Dad said, "Well, at least you're used to being patient." William would sometimes honk as he passed me in the mornings, music blaring, windows down. Once, he tossed me a wrapped breakfast sandwich. It hit the sidewalk and rolled into a puddle. He laughed. I didn't pick it up. That was the difference between us. He had everything handed to him and still expected applause. I worked for everything and got silence. I got accepted into a top-tier tech school my senior year. I paid for the application myself, wrote essays on the bus using spotty mobile data, and worked 2 jobs just to afford the fees. When the letter came, I waited until after dinner to show them. William was sprawled on the couch talking about his new job as a shift supervisor at a gym, a position he got through a friend of a friend. Mom clapped. Dad called it real progress. I pulled the envelope from my backpack and said quietly, "I got in. Full ride." They looked, smiled, nodded. Mom said, "That's great, Mason," while picking up dishes. Dad didn't say anything at all. William said, "That's the nerd school, right?" I stood in the hallway after, holding the letter for 10 more minutes. Just standing there, like maybe if I waited long enough, someone would come out and say something more. They didn't. All through college, I worked like my life depended on it. Because it did. IT help desk during the day. Hotel kitchen dishwasher at night. I scrubbed pans until my hands cracked, then coded software during breaks on my cracked laptop. William got fired twice during that same time span. One job for being late, the other for calling in sick too many Mondays in a row. Both times, the family had sympathy. "He's just finding himself. He's got a lot of potential." Me? I got a flat tire on the way to finals once and had to walk 3 miles in dress shoes. When I told Dad later, he laughed. "That's life, huh?" Holidays were worse. They revolved around William's availability. If he had weekend plans, Thanksgiving moved. If I had exams? Well, you're flexible, right? The one time the house flooded, broken pipe under the sink, Dad called me in a panic. I left mid-shift, drove 2 hours, and fixed it with a wrench set I bought myself. He stood behind me with a beer and said, "Man, you should have gone into plumbing." Mom said nothing, just took a photo of William handing me the flashlight. I paid for their utilities more than once. Quietly. Never asked for anything back. Just waited, in some pathetic way, for someone to notice. But no one ever did. I was the background character in my own family. The one who always managed, so they didn't have to. And even then, even after years of doing the hard work without complaint, I still thought maybe, just maybe, if I kept going, I'd earn it. Earn what? Their pride? Their love? Hell, maybe just a thank you. But none of that came. What came instead was silence. Shrugs. The occasional, "You're not like your brother." And slowly, I stopped expecting anything at all. The day I moved out, nobody noticed. No sentimental send-off, no family group photo, no hug from Mom in the driveway. Just me, a stack of cardboard boxes, and a friend's borrowed truck that rattled if you went over 45. William was inside doing a live stream of his fitness journey. Dad was mowing the front lawn in his old cargo shorts. I waved once. He didn't look up. Not out of spite, I just wanted to see if he would. He didn't. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. Just free. The apartment I moved into wasn't impressive. 1 bedroom. 3rd floor. Window view of a crumbling dry cleaners and a parking lot with exactly 1 working streetlight. But it was mine. No passive-aggressive notes. No awkward silences. No ghost of William's praise echoing through the walls. Just quiet. The first few nights were strange. Not lonely, just quiet in a way that felt earned. I picked up a second job doing late-night food delivery on top of my IT freelancing. Woke up at 6, slept around 2. My car smelled like fries, my wrists ached from typing, and I kept a spreadsheet that tracked every single dollar I spent: rent, gas, even laundry quarters. Nothing went to waste. My side hustle, IT consulting, started slow. Fixing routers. Cleaning out malware. Setting up Wi-Fi for local cafes that thought password was a secure password. I charged cheap, showed up early, stayed late. If something broke after, I'd fix it for free. That's how word got around. I still remember the first time someone called me. Sir? A bar owner named Trish, who asked, Sir, do you also do security systems? I said yes. I'd never done it before, but I learned overnight. By year 2, I wasn't just fixing things, I was building something. I had 3 steady clients. Enough money to move out of that creaky apartment and into a small condo near the city. I signed the papers alone, staring at the closing contract with shaky hands. It wasn't much, but it had stainless steel appliances and my name on the deed. I didn't tell my family. Not because I was hiding it, I just didn't need their reaction anymore. William, on the other hand? Let's just say gravity started working on his golden boy status. First came the DUI. Quietly swept under the rug. He's under a lot of pressure, my mom whispered in the family group chat. Then came the dealership scandal, something about unauthorized side deals and a furious client. He got let go. My parents didn't mention it. I found out from a guy I once delivered Chinese food to. Turned out he used to work with William. He said, Man, you guys are brothers? Could have fooled me. You're nothing like him. That was the first time I took that as a compliment. I didn't reach out to William. Not to shame him. Not to comfort him. Just didn't. Because for once in my life, I wasn't orbiting around his collapse or their expectations. I had my own center of gravity. Around that time, I pulled together 2 other guys I'd met through freelance forums, both burned out from their corporate gigs. We started collaborating on small contracts under a joke name, Quiet Fix. I designed the website on a Saturday night with leftover pizza and 2 Red Bulls. We got our first real client the next week. A doctor's office. Then a bakery. Then a design firm. No suits. No ego. Just results. Within 2 years, we had an LLC. 5-figure contracts. A rented co-working space. Real clients. A real team. I wasn't just getting by anymore. I was building something no one in my family would ever understand. And I liked it that way. Buying the house didn't feel real at first. I stood in the entryway for 10 full minutes before walking in. Just breathing. The air was different. Calmer. The silence didn't hum with judgment or passive disappointment, it was still. Clean. Like the start of something mine. 3 bedrooms, high ceilings, light that poured in like the universe was apologizing. Hardwood floors, a wraparound porch, and a view out back that looked like a desktop wallpaper. It wasn't a mansion, but it didn't need to be. It was freedom. I didn't tell anyone right away. Just unpacked slowly, 1 box at a time. Bought my first couch with no one else's opinion. Got a real coffee table, no milk crates, no cardboard. Even picked out paint samples without asking. Do you think this matches? And then, maybe out of old habits or some sliver of hope, I decided to send an invite. Not flashy. Just a polite message. Hey, I moved into my new place. Hosting a housewarming next Sunday if you'd like to come by. Address attached. I sent it to the family group chat and even followed up with an email to my parents directly. No pressure. No guilt trip. Just an open door. Then I waited. 1 day passed. Nothing. Then 3. Nothing. By day 7, I had to admit it, they weren't coming. No. Congrats. No. Wish we could make it. Not even the default thumbs up reaction. It was the same silence I'd known all my life, now delivered digitally. The wine I'd bought for the party sat unopened. The charcuterie board I practiced assembling sat in the fridge, wrapped in cling film like a leftover apology. The little cheese knives I bought, the ones Mom would have loved, never even got used. I sat alone on the back deck, drinking from one of the bottles anyway. Just me, a plastic cup, and a new house filled with old echoes. But the next morning? That's when it stung. I opened my phone and saw them, photo after photo, brightly filtered and captioned like it was a holiday. William plus Vanessa's engagement bash. Our golden boy's next chapter. So proud of this beautiful couple. My entire family, uncles, cousins, even that one aunt who still thinks I work at Geek Squad, all gathered under white fairy lights in some rented garden venue. Balloons. Champagne. A custom backdrop that said, "Forever starts now." They hadn't just skipped my housewarming. They replaced it. I wasn't even mentioned. Not a tag. Not a, "Sorry we miss yours, Mason." Nothing. Just dozens of happy faces and outfits they definitely didn't wear for me. One picture hit me like a punch to the ribs. My parents, standing side by side, beaming at William like he'd solved world hunger. Dad raised a glass. The caption read, "Family is everything." Funny. I'd said something similar on my invite. I didn't rage. Didn't throw anything. I just stared at my phone for a while, feeling that old pressure in my chest, the one I used to feel at dinner tables when William got asked about his plans and I got asked to refill the gravy. Then I closed the app. Deleted it. Gone. That night, I brought the untouched food into the office. My team thought I was hosting some corporate event. I just smiled and said, "Leftovers." They didn't ask. They just dug in. We opened another bottle. One of the good ones. Nick raised a toast. To Mason's new place, and to building what they said you couldn't. We laughed. It was loud. Messy. Real. And for the first time, the silence I'd lived in felt far, far away. It started with a missed call. Dad's name flashed across my phone while I was elbow deep inside a server rack, tracing a faulty power supply. I let it ring. Figured it was another, "What's my Apple ID again?" moment. He called again. Then a third time. That's when I stepped outside. I stood in the alley behind the office, surrounded by humming AC units and a pizza box someone had abandoned on top of the dumpster. Classy spot for what would become one of the most ironic conversations of my life. "Hello?" I answered flat. "Mason?" My dad's voice cracked slightly. "Hey, son. How've you been?" I blinked. Son? He hadn't used that word since high school. I half expected him to ask if I'd been body snatched. "I'm good," I said slowly. "Working." "Right. Yeah. That's good. You're always working, huh?" He gave an awkward laugh, then cleared his throat. "Listen, something's come up." "Here it comes." He started with a sigh. "Always a good sign. It's about William's wedding. The vineyard venue we booked, well, turns out they double booked the date. Some social media influencer offered double to bump us." He paused, waiting for sympathy. I just said, "Okay." He hesitated. "We got the deposit back, but the wedding's in 3 weeks, and we're stuck." Silence. "We were wondering," he said, voice careful now, "if maybe you'd be willing to help out. Just temporarily." "Help out how?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Well, we know you've got that new place. Big yard, lots of space, nice view. It'd be perfect for the ceremony or the reception. Or both. Vanessa's thinking rustic chic now anyway." He chuckled, like we were sharing an inside joke. "You know how brides are." I didn't say a word. He filled the space immediately. "We'd handle all the logistics, of course. Tents, food, music. You wouldn't have to lift a finger. We just need the location." So that's what I was now. Not a brother. Not a son. Not a guest. A location. "You weren't our first thought," he added too quickly. "We tried other options, but nothing worked out. Yours is just available." Available. It wasn't even offensive. It was pathetic. They hadn't come to my housewarming. Hadn't acknowledged my invitation. Hadn't even replied to my new address. But now, with the wedding venue gone, suddenly my house was valuable. Suddenly I was available. I could have hung up. Could have snapped. Could have laughed and said, "Use the backyard from those engagement photos." Instead, I said calmly, "Let me check my schedule." A long pause. I could hear him swallow. "Right. Sure. Appreciate that. Vanessa's got vendors calling. We'll need to know soon. I'll get back to you." I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the office window. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel smug. I felt detached. This wasn't a win. It was a reminder. They didn't need me. They needed what I had. They didn't see Mason. They saw a modern house with enough space for 50 guests and a scenic deck for champagne photos. I went inside and texted Lila, my operations lead. Me. "Hey, I need a standard event rental agreement. Wedding edition. Full liability clause. Damage waivers. Property fees. Market rate." Lila. "Oh, okay, what cousin ticked you off?" Me. "The golden one." She sent a laughing emoji then. "Draft coming in 30 minutes. Want me to add a cleaning deposit?" Me. "Absolutely." I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. They wanted help. They'd get it. At market value. The rental agreement was airtight. Market rate. Time restrictions. A damage deposit. Vendor limitations. Cleaning fees. Noise curfew. Property access clause. And most importantly, a line that read, "All guests and contractors will follow the direction of the property owner, Mr. Mason Brown, or his appointed staff at all times." Lila looked it over, then grinned. "You want me to have this delivered to your dad?" I shook my head. "I'll send it." And I did. Attached to an email that began with "As discussed, here are the terms for use of my property." Within 30 minutes, I got a reply. "Dad. Bit formal, don't you think?" Me. "So is hosting a 70-person event. Let me know if you'd prefer another venue." Silence. Then, finally, "We agree. Please confirm availability." And just like that, it was on. I didn't cut corners. I hired my regular event logistics crew, not family, not friends, pros. I walked them through everything: where the tables should go, the permitted vendor zones, how to redirect guests away from private areas. "Refer to me as Mr. Brown when dealing with the family," I said. The head of the crew, Marcus, smirked. "Respect." The morning of the rehearsal walkthrough, I was in the backyard overseeing tent setup when I heard gravel crunching. A black SUV rolled in. My parents stepped out, Dad in slacks, Mom in a floral blouse and oversized sunglasses. She scanned the property like she was arriving at a 5-star resort. Then she saw me, clipboard in hand, talking to staff. She blinked. Walked over with a tight smile. "Mason," she said, the tone sweet but confused. "Everything looks beautiful. You've done well." I nodded. "Thanks. We're on a tight schedule." She flinched slightly at my tone. I didn't say anything else. Dad followed behind her, holding a coffee cup like it was a prop. He glanced at the crew, then back at me. "So, you're really running this like a business, huh?" I looked up. "It is a business." Right. Right. Then Marcus walked up. "Mr. Brown, the chairs for the ceremony, you want 'em in rows of 6 or 8? My dad's eyebrows rose. Mom turned to me slowly, as if just realizing something. "Mr. Brown?" she repeated. I didn't explain. I didn't smile. I just said, "Rows of 8. Their expressions barely hid the shift, the quiet calculation in their eyes as they processed what this meant. This wasn't a kind gesture. This was a contract. And they were clients. The day before the wedding, William finally showed up for a walk-through. He was wearing sunglasses and a loose button-down, pretending to be cool and casual. He barely acknowledged me. "You sure this place can handle the sound setup?" he asked, gesturing toward the deck. "You're free to consult with your DJ," I replied. He huffed. "I'm just saying, don't want the speakers blowing out." I smiled, polite and professional. "I don't want that either. There's a sound limit after 9:30. It's in your contract." His fiancée, Vanessa, walked over with a clipboard of her own. "Hi," she said, not even looking at me. "Is the vendor access through the back gate or side?" I pointed. "Back gate. Staff only. Private entry is for family." She rolled her eyes. "Which family?" I didn't answer. The day of the wedding, everything ran like clockwork. The yard was flawless. Guests arrived in suits and dresses. Champagne flowed. People took photos under the archway I'd personally designed. My house was the backdrop for the most perfect day of their lives. And yet, not once did they acknowledge whose house it was. They whispered about it, sure. "That's his house. Did Mason rent this? Wait, he owns it." But not one person said it out loud. Not to my face. And I didn't need them to. Because every vendor, every staff member, every clipboard and command started and ended with Mr. Brown. The wedding was beautiful. Too beautiful, honestly. White string lights laced the trees like something out of Pinterest. The tent glowed like a giant lantern. Classical music floated through the air, timed perfectly with servers carrying trays of mini quiches and fancy name-tagged canapes. It was like watching someone else's dream unfold, right in my backyard. The one I paid for. But to everyone here, I was just staff. Maybe a manager. Some even mistook Marcus, the crew lead, for the homeowner. I didn't correct them. Let them wonder. I stayed near the back, sipping ginger ale from a champagne flute. No one looked my way unless something needed fixing. Vanessa's cousin actually asked me where the bathroom was, then handed me her empty glass like I was a waiter. I said nothing. Vanessa, meanwhile, was whispering behind fans and fake smiles. "I still can't believe he lives here," she muttered to her friend. "Mason? He used to be like a computer guy, right? No way he owns all this." Her friend leaned in. "I heard he was, like, fixing people's Wi-Fi?" Vanessa let out a smug little laugh. "Exactly. This must be a rental. William said he probably used all his savings. It's kind of cute, really." I was standing maybe 10 feet away, partially hidden behind a tent support. William was there too. He didn't correct her. Didn't even blink. Just took a slow sip of his drink and nodded like a man who'd been congratulated for surviving his own brother. It wasn't rage I felt. It was something colder. Clearer. The DJ came up to me right as the sun dipped low over the trees. "Mr. Brown? You're on the toast list, sir. Ready whenever you are." "Sir." Funny how one word, from someone I paid, sounded more respectful than anything I'd heard from my own family in years. I nodded and walked toward the mic. As I stepped up, a hush fell over the guests. Clink stopped. Fans paused mid-wave. Even the photographer leaned sideways to get the right angle, like he wasn't sure if I was the caterer giving a weird speech. Vanessa blinked. William stiffened. My mother narrowed her eyes slightly, like she was trying to figure out what I was about to say before I said it. I looked around. All these people. All this money. All these flowers and polished cutlery and chair covers. Not one of them knew the hours I spent installing security cameras, unclogging pipes, fixing power outages. Not one of them saw the ramen dinners, the double shifts, the nights sleeping in my office chair just to afford the down payment for this exact plot of land. I didn't thank the couple. I didn't call William my brother. I just said, "Sometimes, life teaches you to stop fighting for a seat at tables where you were never truly welcome. So instead, you build your own table. You buy the chairs. You cook the meal. And if no one shows up, you eat in peace anyway." That's all I wanted to say. Silence. For 5 full seconds, no one moved. Then someone clapped. Then another. Eventually the whole tent joined in, but it wasn't the polite applause you hear after some cliché toast about love and sacrifice. It was hesitant. Uncertain. Like they weren't sure if they were celebrating me or trying to erase the awkwardness. Vanessa was frozen, wine glass halfway to her lips. William just looked at the floor. My dad, red-faced and still chewing, set down his fork without finishing the bite. I handed the mic back to the DJ and walked off without a word. I didn't stay for the cake. I didn't pose for photos. I didn't wait for someone to say, "You did good, Mason." I walked around the back of the house, slipped off my tie, and sat on the back steps with a bottle of water and silence. The music was muffled from here, the laughter distant. And above me, the stars started to show through a clear sky. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. Event went perfect. "You want to invoice them tonight or Monday?" I replied. "Monday. Let Em enjoy the illusion." Then I leaned back on my elbows, looked up at the stars, and for the first time that night smiled for real. Because the best part wasn't the applause. It was the fact that I never needed it. 3 days passed before the phone rang again. "Dad." I watched it buzz on my desk like it had a choice. 4 seconds. 5. Voicemail. Then again. Then a text. I just wanted to say, "I was wrong." I stared at the words for a long time. No, hi. No, how are you? Just that, dropped like a coin in a wishing well. Another message came through, longer this time. Something about how proud he was, how he hadn't realized, how the house looked incredible, how the whole family was talking about what I built. He mentioned William. Said he was going through some things. That Vanessa might be a lot to handle. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the photo gallery on my phone and scrolled to the one image I'd saved from the wedding. Not of the couple. Not of the family smiling in fake unity. It was a candid shot taken by one of my staff. I hadn't known about it until he sent it later. It was me, standing at the front door of my house, one hand in my pocket, laughing with my team as the final guests were leaving. The sun was low, casting a soft, golden light behind us. I looked calm. Not performative. Not trying to impress anyone. Just me. In my element. In control. I printed it. Framed it in black metal. Hung it just inside the entryway, right above the switch by the front door. Every time someone enters now, it's the first thing they see. It's not about the house. It's not even about revenge. It's about proof. Proof that I didn't need to yell. Or beg. Or chase. I just built. I just worked. And eventually, they had to see it, on my terms. That night, someone rang the doorbell. I walked up slowly and peeked through the camera. Mom. Alone. She didn't look mad. She didn't look smug. She just looked old. Tired. Like life had finally shown her a mirror. She raised a hand to knock again, then noticed the framed photo beside her through the glass. I watched her blink. Her hand dropped. I didn't open the door. Not yet. Instead, I turned, walked back to my kitchen, and sat down with a bowl of leftovers and a playlist running in the background. Because healing doesn't always come from reconciliation. Sometimes it comes from boundaries. Sometimes it looks like a photo. And sometimes it's as simple as knowing I was never meant to be like my brother. And that's the best thing that ever happened to me.